Welcome everyone, my name is Aoife and in this podcast I chat to a range of different women entrepreneurs and business owners who share their experiences, their knowledge and their expertise in the world of outdoor cycling and adventure sports and industries, particularly around Scotland and the Scottish borders area. And joining me here today is Jen Price from Mindful Roots. Jen, thank you very much for coming for a chat.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Excellent. So just to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about Mindful Roots, your business, what it is, who it's for, what it does, what could people expect from you?
So my business is a combination of, it's a life coaching business, and I'm also a mountain bike guide. So I sometimes combine the two and I sometimes do them separate.
Yeah.
So that's probably the quick answer.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it is really come from my own journey, I suppose, my own personal development journey, as well as my own journey of biking and how I've kind of, how I've like benefited from mountain biking specifically, but actually how sometimes my own mindset, my own confidence or lack of self-esteem off the bike was impacting me on the bike.
Right.
And I had never really realised until I started to work on the relationship with myself what a difference that could actually make on the bike and how I showed up for bike rides, how I showed up to people, how I perhaps used to berate myself maybe on a climb, and maybe even feel like I wasn't worthy of even being a cyclist or entering events or, worthy of joining groups or whatever. I would often struggle with anxiety and lack of confidence. And I think it was really when I started to work on myself, before I trained as a life coach, but when I started to work on myself with the help of coaches, actually, I started to realise the power of just working on yourself, having your own personal development sort of story, I suppose, and understanding and awareness around all of that, and how that actually influenced the way I started to view myself.
Yeah.
And that became really apparent, that all the berating and the lack of confidence and the self-esteem issues that I had off the bike were happening on the bike, and I'd never really noticed. And so I figured that other people are experiencing this. And I think I just felt so compelled when I discovered that to firstly train as a life coach, and then secondly train as a mountain bike guide, always with the intention that somehow I'd love to combine the benefits of mountain biking with linking that to well-being, linking that to how we can actually improve our own mindset and self-esteem and confidence. And it's really proven to be really beneficial for people, and the people that reach out to me have had similar experiences or are currently in that kind of period of their lives. So I do have clients that are non-bikers, and it's primarily, I guess, it is just a life coaching business, personal development, mindset, confidence coaching, however you want to look at it. But that combination, I think people are attracted maybe to me because of my lifestyle of biking. And so people tend to maybe relate, and I can relate to them and their lifestyle. And so often we kind of bring in analogies related to biking, but also I combine it by doing guided mindful rides as well, where we actually take those conversations out into out onto the trails, out on the bikes, using the bikes as a vehicle to access nature, but to actually connect with our own mind, our body and nature when we're out there, to really just actually bring about awareness. And have those kind of conversations. I don't know about you, but some of the best conversations I've had are side by side on the bike, where actually there's not as much pressure to kind of have eye contact, or often conversations just flow a little bit like you flow on the bike. And often turning pedals often turns like ideas into action.
Yeah.
Because you're inspired by the outdoors, that sense of fresh air and all the endorphins that flow from riding your bike. So I kind of feel that like it's such a good context to have these really deep and meaningful kind of conversations, and can really inspire people to just believe in themselves a bit more. And I think, you know, risky play builds resilience. So actually a lot of the work that you can do on the bike can also transfer off the bike, as well as the work off the bike, which is that kind of personal development in the background work, can translate to on the bike as well. So I just think there's a real interconnectedness between the two. And so it's just been quite natural for me. It's evolved a little bit over time, but certainly, so that was the longer answer.
But I can see that because, you know, there's, I mean, there's increasing awareness now of obviously there's the physical benefits of exercise, but the physical and mental benefits of getting out into nature. And then that's something, that I've sort of experienced a bit myself as well, like feeling nervous on the bike. But then also that sort of taking that like sense of achievement, if you have managed to achieve something on a bike, into another context and go, look, there was a scary situation and I managed to... I manage that, so I can manage scary situations. So I can sort of maybe take that learning, in this case, you sort of help people take that learning into other contexts and sort of think about themselves in a maybe a more focused way.
Absolutely. I think, you know, we can do hard things. And so when we overcome those actual obstacles on a trail and overcome maybe slight fears when we're out on the trail, absolutely that is transferable to off the bike for sure. But I don't think, and I think that's a more obvious connection.
Right.
I don't think people have necessarily made the connection so easily as work on yourself off the bike and how that translates into biking. And I think that's particularly true for people who, you know, maybe just aren't as confident on the bike. And I think actually often I wonder how much is that a correlation to how they are off the bike as well. And in my experience of working with people in this context, that has proven to be the case. So yeah.
Is that, do you think, because there's something very heightened about being on a bike, that so if you maybe, does it sort of focus sort of behavioural or thought patterns in that way? I'm probably asking you to speculate on all sorts of like psychological stuff at this point. But in your experience, based on who you've worked with, is there something about sort of that sort of element of the bike that, like, if you have anxiety elsewhere, it becomes particularly acute when you're riding?
Maybe, I'm not really sure. I just think it's, I suppose when I'm talking about confidence on the bike, I'm not even necessarily talking about, you know, how big a drop you'll do or how like actually like how challenging the features are. I'm actually more talking about like the confidence to go and ride your bike, to go and join a local club or a group ride or enter a race. And often I know that I used to not feel, I mean, I've done all those things. So from the outside, people looking in might not recognise or realise the lack of confidence because I was still going and doing those things. But I was showing up such an anxious version of myself.
Right.
And if I was to go back to do all of those events and activities, I know I would show up a different version because I've worked on that side of myself that shows up much more almost like I don't give as much of a shit about it.
Love it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think
like, a lot of us would probably wish that we could be like that.
Yeah, like if I don't fit in or if I don't feel like somebody likes me, well, fuck it. I just feel more comfortable like in my own skin. But I had to do a lot of work like on that. I had to do a lot more work. I'm not saying I'm completely rid of that. Of course, I sometimes have moments where I don't feel as confident or whatever. But I think I just care less than I used to. And I think that is a really nice place to be. And I think, and like I say, it took a lot of work to kind of build up my own confidence. And I think when I've worked with clients, some clients have come to me with specific biking goals. And often we've broken those down and realised that they're doing them to try and fit in. And it's not always a genuine like desire. And then some people have come with like, oh no, I'm not a cyclist, but they ride bike every weekend, but they just can't identify themselves as a cyclist because they don't feel that they're worthy of that. And actually they're covering loads of distance and all the rest of it, and actually encouraging them to go and enter that race or that event or, go along to a group festival or whatever,
Yeah.
and realise that everybody's in the same boat and things like that. So there's a real mix of people. Sometimes it's like building up goals and getting them to like push themselves to do something new. Sometimes it's breaking down the goals and going, why do you actually want to do that? Who's that for? Is that for you, or is that because you feel some sort of pressure that you should be doing an event, you should be doing something to prove that you're a cyclist, when actually if you're just going out and riding your bike and having fun, then we're all cyclists, right? Whatever level, professional, how slow, how fast, like how far, really doesn't matter. And I think sometimes it's like people that I've worked with, it's like just hearing somebody say that is like permission to just be themselves.
Yeah.
So I really think that there's a lot of mindset and confidence related to off the bike, like I've said, so that then it can translate on the bike. But you're totally right. It is all transferable. But I think that side of things is more obvious. I think people have made that connection, like, oh, if I can do these hard things, then what else can I do in life? Like that to me seems quite a common sort of perception around it. So I just think it's quite interesting to think about it from the other,
the more subtle but
direction.
arguably very impactful kind of side of
and
things.
can definitely improve your cycling, can definitely improve your experience of showing up and who you ride with and the events you do, and just not caring as much about what other people think of you and not comparing yourself as much to people.
And you've sort of touched on this a little bit, and obviously we don't want to go into details of all your clients, but what kind of, who comes to you? What kind of people in what kind of situations and environments?
Yeah, so it's actually a real mix. Like I'll say I've mostly women, but I have coached some men as well, which has been really interesting. Almost all my clients have been cyclists in one way, shape or form. Some, like I said, have come to me with like big goals, wanting to achieve, certain, like a big distance ride or whatever, and then realising they were just doing that to fit in.
Yeah.
I have worked with a couple of like professional athletes as well. And actually for some it was a case of, again, it was like life situations outside of their biking career that can sometimes impact their job essentially, right? So that's definitely something that has been a massive impact and really interesting for me. But also working with an athlete who is coming to the end of their cycling sort of career or like racing experience, and undoing the identity related to cycling, which has actually been really interesting, and helping them to realise that they're more than just a cyclist. So almost like at the other end of that identity kind of situation, I suppose, to help them unpick that actually they've got so much more in their lives of value and experiences ahead of them beyond the life of a racing cyclist. So lots of different clients. Like I say, some are not cyclists at all, but are really into the outdoors. And so I think every single client has definitely got an outdoorsy sort of lifestyle. Because I think if you are going to find a life coach, you want somebody that's going to be relatable to you, and somebody that you like or that you can relate to, and likewise that I can relate to them. So definitely outdoors as a theme. But most of them cyclists. Even if some clients we don't talk about cycling at all, but I think it's just that, like, knowing that we're both into the same things in our lifestyle, I suppose.
You get an understanding, don't you? It's the same way that if you talk to, it's the same way as if you talk to, I don't know, for example, a doctor and you have knee issues, and they'll, if they're a cyclist, they'll understand more, like, particularly if they say, well, you should just stop cycling. And it's like, no cycling doctor is ever going to say that, so, unless it's really bad. So just that sort of understanding of like what it is you're doing and what motivates people, and sort of their priorities. So it's clearly a strong business case. There's a market for it for sure. How did you go from sort of idea to setting it up? Like, was there a lot of, did you need to get lots of funding in place to get started, or was it fairly, sort of easily accessible, easy startup?
A fairly easy startup for me, because it's not, I don't require premises as such. I do, most of my coaching is online, although sometimes I have one-to-one clients face-to-face. But actually, if I do that, it's usually we'll go out for a walk. I've actually done some lovely one-to-one coaching, sat down by the River Tweed on a blanket with cups of tea,
lovely.
and it's just lovely, or I do some like walking, walking coaching. as well. And I was saying then the mindful rides as well. So actually, really, I've got all my own kind of kit for that already in my life. So actually a very low startup costs to get me started. So yeah.
And has your business evolved? Because it's been running for a few years now. Has it, did you go into it with like, this is the thing I'm going to do? And has it changed from that? Or did you go into it trying one thing and then trying a few others as you went along?
I think I always knew that I wanted to somehow combine what I was doing with coaching with mountain biking.
Yeah.
But I don't think it came straight away, and I think I've kind of gone like up and down with it, I suppose.
Yeah.
So when I first started, I suppose I was working with clients just on a one-to-one basis on a life coaching business model. But very soon, actually, I had people interested in what I was doing with the mindful rides, and have supported a few mountain bike festivals and gravel festivals and things like that. So that's been amazing. And I think it does feel like I've got more of a bike focus, but I think I always knew that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to combine my knowledge of coaching with my knowledge of mountain biking, and really just sort of just really promote the, like you talked about, the health benefits of not only mountain biking but just actually being outside, just the well-being that comes from that. And I want to be part of that message, I want to share that message, and I think that can perhaps be an accessible message for women in particular, to get more women into mountain biking. I think could be, for them to really appreciate the wellbeing benefits of mountain biking would be great.
Of which there are many, and there's just so much amazing riding in this area at whatever level you want to do it.
Absolutely.
It's just so accessible.
I think people do think that the Tweed Valley though is renowned for quite sort of gnarly mountain biking, but I've made it my mission to try and find the non-gnarly stuff. I love all the stuff up at the Golfing and and all the rest of it, but I have made it my mission to try and explore some of the more well, there's so much gravel riding around here. There's there's amazing,
and even the Riverside path is just like, sort of old a railway track that's been changed into a multi-use path. It runs along the Tweed, it takes you to some nice towns, there's loads of cafes,
literally just ride from cafe to cafe.
I mean, why not? It sounds brilliant.
We should do that.
I think we should do that. So one of the things that sort of comes up a lot with businesses and journeys and people's journeys through their businesses is kind of like ongoing funding and support. So you mentioned there's not a huge amount of resource that you need to go into. You don't need premises, you don't need maybe lots of equipment, you've got most of that already. Have you had support and funding along the way, if you don't mind getting into the money side of things?
No is the short answer. Apart from I've got a little bit of support in terms of I've got some kit that I get from a clothing brand, and also helmet and eyewear, and I did also have amazing support from a bike brand as well that I got my hardtail through as well. So little things like that just go a long way just to support. Not only the message, to sort of give a bit of emphasis to the message that I'm putting out there, and I would only really want to work with brands that had a similar kind of message about that as well. And I've always been really clear in sharing that message with those brands. But very very minimal support. It's not something that I've massively sought out. I don't know how I feel about really extensive brand support and the obligations that I know that some riders are under. I don't have that necessarily with the brands that I've got. I've got a really good relationship in that sense. So it feels like a really natural fit, the brands that support me, and also and what I do for them feels in alignment as well. So and that well-being message. So
and again, I suppose if we're looking at it from a brand and business perspective, from their perspective, as you said, you're aligned. If you're talking about a brand, you're only working with brands that you do feel have, sort of share your ethos and perspective. So it's a valuable for you to say that this is a brand that you work with the people that you're working with. That is surely invaluable, in fact, from a reaching the market point of view. I know that's not the focus, but I can imagine that from those brands' perspectives, that's kind of an amazing opportunity to sort of directly reach the markets they're trying to reach.
And I think typically when I'm working with the majority of people I am working with are people who are not as confident maybe in the industry, and actually they don't know what brands to try, or like, and often they do say, what kit do you wear? What kit do you use? What's that bike? Tell me a bit about that bike. And they're sometimes just looking for advice in general. And I think a lot of guiding businesses that work with clients, or coaching businesses that work with clients in that context, I think experience a similar thing. People look up to them in many ways to find out, what do they do? If it's good enough for the guide, then it's good enough for me, kind of thing. And not that I'm putting myself in that bracket, but but just, I think there is, those conversations do happen for sure. So.
So looking then again at the business perspective, have you faced any challenges along the way in your journey from like start to where you are currently?
I think for me it's time to do all the things I need to fulfill and create all the opportunities that I want to. I have all these ideas, and having the time and capacity. I do run my business as in addition to my full-time job. So it is I try not to call it a side business or a side hustle, and kind of just more see it as like an additional stream of income. And try, because I feel like that's got a more positive kind of slant to it, rather than just saying it's a side hustle. So any side hustlers out there, additional stream of income.
Like it.
And I think, so for me, time to pull together all the ideas. So actually identifying what is my priority this year, or what are the things I want to develop and focus on, because it's just choosing those things wisely, I guess. And I think like everybody, and although I talked about overcoming confidence and things, I still get imposter syndrome. I still get, sometimes like a little like, I don't know if I'm confident enough to ask for that. And I think, sometimes maybe that holds me back in some of the ideas that I might have. I think, there's this women in the cycling industry group, which is amazing for contacts, but actually sometimes it's like,
it could feel
overwhelming and a bit intimidating. There's so many amazing women doing amazing things. And then here's me just kind of doing my wee mindful rides over here, and I just think, like, am I really contributing to the cycling industry? And then I have to almost have a coaching word with myself and say, well, Jen, if you are doing something related to cycling and it's a business, then maybe you are in the cycling industry. But it's that kind of how you frame language around things like that, and the mindset that you have around it. So I suppose, confidence and knowing my place, and and time. I think they're probably, but no major I've never had any issues, if that makes sense. I don't know. I can't think of anything.
But I think that sounds like the kind of I think a lot of people, particularly anyone who's sort of looking to start a business or start business alongside their sort of like day job, and additional stream of income alongside their day job. And it, time is a huge one. But I think also, and if you don't mind me asking this, because we were talking about sort of this series and sort of women who are business owners and entrepreneurs, and you said that you weren't sure, like, am I a business owner, am I an entrepreneur, and like sort of should I, can I define myself in those terms? And we said exactly that. It's like, but you have a business, and you work in the outdoors.
I think entrepreneur just sounds big. Entrepreneur sounds like, I don't know, to me, I suppose just entrepreneur sounds big, but then you just think, well, let's just redefine that. What does success mean to me in my business? And actually, I'm still grappling with that a little bit, because I'm still, sometimes I think, I'd love to just, ditch the day job and just do this full time. But do I? And I think actually maybe I'm exactly where I want to be, or I'm exactly where I want to be right now. And I'm quite happy with that organic kind of growth and that organic kind of journey that I'm on, I suppose. I'm comfortable with that. I actually love my day job as well, by the way. So it's not like in any way like a kind of like a plea for help, or like escape, my exit or escape plan. It's just something that I came to it not because I was wanting to set up a business for making loads of money. I set it up because I became so passionate about my own personal development journey, the impact that it had on me, and recognizing the difference that it had on my mountain biking and how I showed up. And I just thought, I can't be the only one that needs to hear this message. And so I tentatively went out to share that message and speak to people and find that there were same people experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it came from, and that's always going to be at the core. So would I do it full time? Would I do it bigger? Maybe, but I actually think I enjoy it how it is.
Yeah.
But does that make me less of an entrepreneur?
No, I don't think so. Yeah,
It's just sort of like, maybe redefining the success is like, well, maybe success is I've got a successful business that gives me an additional stream of income.
Yeah.
I get to share my passion with people that I know it's going to positively impact.
Yeah.
It makes a difference to them.
Yeah.
And I just think maybe that's my success.
Yeah.
Is having an impact in the industry in some small gestured way. That maybe that's just my success, and maybe I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It strikes me that this is a very similar conversation to the one we have about people who feel uncomfortable defining themselves as cyclists.
Yes, it does.
It's very similar.
Yeah. And so and that's why I'm saying I have to almost like coach myself into this, because I think, an entrepreneur is certainly nothing. I would never have described myself as entrepreneur. So that's why I was sort of faced with the challenge of like, interesting.
You've identified, based on your experience and your knowledge and your expertise, you've identified, a potential service, and there is an audience for it. So that's quite entrepreneurial, even if the focus isn't to have like Jen Price coaching in like cities all around the world, which might happen at some point. But for now, that's quite Jen Price coaching in the Tweed Valley in Scotland works well.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
Mindful roots.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it. I think the key is just defining what success means to you, to anybody listening in that sense. It's like, what does it actually mean? Because if you constantly compare yourself to others, then you're just going to be fighting a losing battle.
Yeah.
We know comparison's a thief of joy. Yeah. So, that's never gonna, you're gonna go round in circles if you try and constantly compare yourself to everybody else. It's like the person you should be comparing yourself or trying to be better than is just being the best version of yourself. Being the best version of yourself, which I know sounds super cheesy, but that's all we've got.
Yeah.
We can't, if you compare yourself to other people, you can't possibly know the entire walk of their life and what they've been through to get to where they have got to. So if you compare your sort of behind the scenes to someone else's success or how their success appears on the outside, you don't know what compromises or what challenges they've had to go through. And hardships even sometimes, how they've accessed money could be from really sad loss in family or, there's so many different reasons that people have the success on the outside that we have to be mindful of. So there's just no point in comparing ourselves to others. So finding out what success, I guess, means to you so that you can reach that point. Yeah. And it's okay to also change your goals and change the boundaries and change kind of, your ideas of success and what might actually, what that might look to you.
There's so many brilliant points in what you've said. Could I ask you to expand it further then? So if you were, based on your experience so far, if you were going to provide advice for anyone else who was, thinking of starting up a business, or they've got something they're passionate about and they think, I think other people would benefit in some ways from me sort of offering this as a service, for example. Yeah. What kind of advice would you give them?
So I'm sure there's probably people out there, like real kind of, real entrepreneurs out there who, actually will say that, the definition of success is the income and the money that's being brought in. I guess my perspective, though, is always going to be based around the passion, like you've just said. For me, it has to come from a place of passion. What I'm doing, I have to have real meaning and value. It has to align with my own values. Yeah. What I do, even in my day job, what I do is in real alignment to my values, I guess. So for me, that's a really important thing, is doing something that's in alignment to your values.
Yeah.
And that you're passionate about, because that passion will just come through when you talk. That passion, you know, customers buy into that.
Yeah.
Other brands, or like, you know, other businesses that you might be collaborating with or working with, suppliers or whatever the business might be, that passion is just going to come naturally. So I think it's finding something that you're passionate about, finding a key message. And yeah, I suppose I've touched on it a little bit, is like not comparing.
Yeah.
However, also finding people that are maybe of similar, you know, similar business to you. And instead of actually comparing and being like in competition, maybe it's more about actually like collaboration over competition.
Oh, I like
and
it.
kind of seeing it as like an opportunity. If somebody's doing something that somebody's already doing something that you want to do, like, you know, connect, learn, get curious about their journey, and about you know, what success looks like for them, and that sort of thing. And I think when you can find people that are doing similar things and have those conversations, it sort of starts to develop more of an abundant mindset rather than this lack mindset.
Yeah.
So instead of actually thinking, oh well, somebody else is doing it, or they're doing it better than me, or there's no room for you know, there's already 3 people doing it, you know, there's no point in me setting that up or whatever. I actually think that abundant mindset, when you actually recognise the sort of the individual value in each of the maybe other businesses or whatever, and learn from those, but still having your own kind of niche or your own kind of unique selling point, USP, is that what they call it in entrepreneurial world?
I believe so.
So having a USP, or having a niche, or a really clear target market, I suppose, or target audience. I suppose getting really clear on that is probably really good as well. I don't always feel as clear as I could be, but I think I've started to become a little bit more niche, and I think that has helped to attract, and also to allow me, when I'm communicating, it's easier for me to explain what I do and who I work with, because it's become more niche. And I think that the more niche you become, you will actually attract those people, because it becomes clearer that that's the way that you want to work.
And they'll go, oh, that is exactly what I'm looking for. This person can help me achieve these goals, or satisfy this particular question I'm looking to answer. So
become the go-to person for that particular subject or theme or whatever. But like I say, recognising the skills and knowledge and the people around you, and celebrating that, you know, rather than seeing them as competition. So collaboration over competition.
I love this advice. Really, really good advice there. Your business is going well. What does 2025 have in store for Mindful Roots?
Ooh. So as I said, I've kind of had different focuses at different times. So last year I had a move from up north to down here in the Tweed Valley. And so I wasn't quite able to focus as much on my mindful rides. I did do some in like festivals and events, but I didn't really do my own mindful rides last year. I focused more on one-to-one coaching, and I was running like a membership and some group courses and things like that last year. Whereas this year, now that I'm more settled and I've completely fallen in love with the Tweed Valley, I have decided to put out some dates for mindful rides, which I'm super excited about. Absolutely love doing them, and I think down here just lends itself to mindful rides as well. There's some real beauty spots around here. I have done one down in the Tweed Valley actually a couple of years ago. It was a private group of friends actually, which was brilliant. I love that. I love when I get like just a private group just want to coordinate, like having like I've done it as a mindful adventure weekend.
Oh, nice.
And done like walks and swims and yoga and stuff like that, and done a whole kind of combination. I'm not quite there yet this year down in the Tweed Valley, but definitely mindful rides as a focus of mine for this year. So
fantastic.
So mindful rides, that's my main focus. One-to-one coaching and things as well. Obviously that always just runs sort of in the background, but for sure some mindful rides this year.
And if people are interested in finding out more about mindful rides, or you know, a little bit more about what you do, or you know, booking in on one of the rides or getting some coaching with you, where do they go? What do they need to do?
So I'm on Instagram, so mindful.roots. You can also get me on my website, which is, funnily enough, www.mindfulroots.co.uk.
Brilliant. See what you did there.
And there's a contact page and everything there as well.
Fantastic.
So yeah, Instagram and my website.
Brilliant. Jen, thank you so much for coming and chatting to me
so
about
lovely.
mindfulness. You've made me feel really inspired about getting out and riding and sort of revisiting my mindset around that. So I know that there was loads of great advice for life, but also for business in our conversation today.
On and off the bike.
On and off the bike.
That's
Fantastic. Thank you to everyone who's listened in today. This podcast was supported by South of Scotland Enterprise, so huge thanks to them. They also have loads of business advice and opportunities as well. So if you are a budding entrepreneur or you're looking to set up or develop your business, then do check out everything that they offer as well. Lots of great stuff on there. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you. Goodbye.